Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the South Fulton Coalition Citizens Conversations event. Tonight, we are going to be featuring Councilwoman Natasha Williams-Brown. She currently represents the City of South Fulton as the District 6 City Council person. Now, within the city's existence, she is the second City Council person to represent District 6, which is located in the Old National area. We have a couple of ground rules that we would like to share. And I will be walking you through those ground rules. So, this is an opportunity for the candidate to talk about her campaign and her contributions and what she expects to do with her position. We ask that all candidates refrain from badgering anyone, including their competition or any residents or anyone or colleagues or anyone else. We prefer that you actually don't mention. I'm sorry, I just went over that. If there are any topics that cannot be discussed, please announce them up front and explain why they can't be discussed. Please do not attack anyone. We will ensure you are not attacked as well. This is intended to be a safe space. We will require everyone to provide their name based on the honor system. The recording will be made available to you and the public within 24 hours or as soon as we get the recording available. At this time, I would like to introduce Mike Dozier. Mike Dozier is a resident of District 5. He moved to the city of South Fulton prior to his incorporation back in 2013. At the time, it was unincorporated Fulton County. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to your moderator, Mr. Mike Dozier.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's been having a good evening. I will be moderating, I will be asking questions, and hopefully we will have a nice, smooth conversation. There will be no attacking. I know that some people think that's what I do, but that's not the point of me being here. I want to make that clear. I just want to ask questions and I just want to have peace and harmony. So I'll say that. I hope that we can find questions that build to where we can get a good view of what Ms. Brown's platform is planning to be. So I'm waiting for the first question. What I'm going to ask you is basically kind of a simple, if you had a wish list of things you could bring to your district and the city, what would those be?
How much money we got?
It's a wish list. It's about money.
It's a wish list. Um, well, thank you for the question. And as always, I have to start with greetings and salutations, as that has become my signature opening. The things that would want to bring to the district for my wish list, just top of the list, are the sit down restaurants that residents have been yearning for. And for those of us who have been long term residents of the Old National Corridor, we certainly remember that we had many, many sit down restaurants. We had a Red Lobster, we had a Longhorn, we had a Sizzler, if that lets you know how old I am and how far I go back. And when the Camp Creek Marketplace was built, we lost our sit down restaurants. They moved up there, and it has been a challenge trying to attract them back. And so that would be the first thing is to bring sit down restaurants back to the Old National Corridor so that residents don't have to go to Fayetteville and to other places to be able to sit down and enjoy a meal. And of course, that would keep the dollars in the community. The second thing is that I would want to see more small businesses coming into the community. And actually, to that end, I was working last night with Assistant City Manager Carmen Davis. We're in the process of finalizing the future land use maps. And one of the things that I have insisted upon was incorporating the Old National LCI study, findings from there, findings from retail strategies. We have a consulting firm the city's contracted with to attract business, and making sure that we can start to introduce some walkability. We can create space for small businesses, for the coffee shops, for the cigar bars, for the places that other cities have that allow for that third place for communities to come together and to congregate. And of course, we want to diversify our housing stock. We know from our ARC study that we have a plethora of single family homes, and that we need to start creating space for younger generations who are not necessarily interested in having those homes. And so looking for those types of opportunities to come to the city of South Fulton. And then finally, residents, the usual things that residents talk about, the streets paved, the potholes filled, the trash picked up, diversification of retail shopping opportunities, stores, that can come in where people can, buy their clothes, buy their shoes, buy their makeup, get their haircuts, get their, the things you need to live on a day-to-day basis. So those would be, I think, the four things just right off the top that I would want to see.
Okay. So going off that same question, what are the three basic needs that we would have to have in a city to get those things?
Well, the first thing is that we're going to have more density. That is the push, that is the future. When you talk to developers, and I have begun to tell people, and I like to say now, that we have to start seeing ourselves the way that other people see us. The future is live, work, play. Walkability is a big thing. A lot of the stores that we want to see, and I'm just going to use Whole Foods as an example because I hear that a lot, but Whole Foods wants to be in a live, work, play area. They want to be in an area where they can, and I've been to neighborhoods, particularly DC. The Whole Foods is on the bottom, and and the condos or whatever are on the top. Or the Whole Foods may be, in a shopping area, but it's also walkable because they're townhouses, they're condos, there's other places nearby. And so we have to build that. We have been kind of a sleepy suburban community for a very long time. Yes, we know that residents are very much attached to that lifestyle, but as I've said to some residents, if you want what other neighborhoods have to build what other neighborhoods have built.
Definitely agree with you. I'm seeing questions, but I'm not seeing them long enough to read them all. One question came up and I kind of understood, and the question was asking, why didn't you vote for Old National as a business district? And I'm not sure if that's correct or not. I couldn't really see.
I don't know what that means because Old National is a commercial corridor. So I honestly don't know how to answer that question.
Oh, I totally understand.
Because Old National is, obviously we have the Old National District, which exists. That wasn't something that had to be voted on. And just because of the nature of Old National, there would be no reason to vote to make it a business district as it's already a business district.
Okay, definitely understand that. So we're going to talk a little bit about what people really want me to ask, but I don't really want to ask, but I'm going to be honest anyway, is the division in the council. How would you go about repairing that?
So I think before we can have a conversation about how I would go about repairing it, we need to first of all ask the question, does everyone want to repair it? Um, we can talk about coming together, we can talk about repairing the breach, but everybody has to be willing to repair the breach. Everybody has to be willing to put down their sword. and to find common ground and to seek peace. Certainly, and I know that I get criticized because I don't participate in the theatrics and histrionics that go on. However, a lot of that is because I'm just not gonna fight with people, and certainly not gonna fight with people in public. Um, and and this is not something that's just limited to the council, there are people who just want to fight. There are people on the council who just want to fight. There are residents who just want to fight. And how I think the question becomes, how do you repair it when you have people who are committed to the fight and don't want to, in the words of Erykah Badu, put down the bags because they're hurting your back?
Yes. So a lot of times what winds up happening is that's the only way they know how. There's no other way for them to communicate. But the truth is, we all know that at some point it has to stop in order for us to go past it. So, when I asked the question, it was kind of a wish list of ideas that we could put out there to kind of build that connection between the council, between the citizens, between some of us that are combative. Does that
Right.
kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. It kind of makes sense. And I can say that I have spent an inordinate amount of time that people don't see, trying to reason with people about how you conduct business, about how you should act, about how you should present. I've had lots of conversations about acting in ways that are wise and that are prudent. But at a certain point, when those things begin to fall on deaf ears, and you see that you are not getting anywhere with trying to bring people to a place of peace, at that point, you kind of just have to let them go with God and say, you know what? I am going to stay in peace. I am going to stay calm. I am not going to bring this energy into my world. And, continue to hope, continue to pray. And maybe, at some point people will come to understand that the way that we do things is destructive. And I think you heard me say maybe a month or so ago at a council meeting how I wish that we would learn how to handle things behind closed doors and not have these constant arguments in public. But even that, fell on deaf ears.
Okay, so now I can see the questions a little bit better. Nonprofits from United International Acts. What was the current update on the old national sidewalks, and when will they be added to the agenda for approval?
So that question has been asked repeatedly. That question has been answered repeatedly.
Give it to us for the dumb people that didn't hear it.
So the sidewalks, the winning bidder has been selected. And let me back up and say that, as has been stated repeatedly, in writing and verbally and in person by multiple people for months on end, the winning bidder has been selected. That information has been sent to the Georgia DOT for review. The sidewalks are a project between the Georgia Department of Transportation and the City of South Fulton involving federal dollars. As has been explained and been explained on camera, I have the video that I can make available to anybody who wishes to view it to jog their memory, that it's under review by Georgia DOT. They will do their work. They will get back to us with the results of their review. And once we have that, we will move forward. Our city manager has indicated several times that I will reiterate now, we are not going to skip steps. We're not going to go outside of process and procedure because people are impatient and do not want to accept the answers that they have been given.
Got you. Makes sense. Like I didn't hear all that. So for me, that's what I need to hear the answer. So that's why I just asked you to repeat it. Um, the next question was, why didn't you vote for the new business development on Camp Ellerton Road last night in apartments? If that
Yes, that makes sense. I did not vote for that because if you look at the agenda, there were parts that staff recommended for approval, and there was a piece that staff recommended for denial. We also received a petition that had almost 400 signatures on it. We received numerous emails from residents saying they didn't want it. We received phone calls and text messages from residents saying that they didn't want it. And those things combined together for me led me to the decision that my vote was going to be a no.
okay? Gotcha.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
I just want to interrupt for a second. I just want to let the folks in the audience know if you have a question that you would like to ask the councilwoman, please use the reactions option and raise your hand, and then we'll acknowledge you and take you off of mute. Mike, you can proceed until we get some questions from the audience.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So, um, some of the things that we see are kind of a contradiction to what we hear. And I think that's a lot of the confusion that goes on. It's not so much whether or not the council is doing something wrong or the citizens are doing something wrong. It's just a lot of times we miss optics. So in a situation where you tend to be quiet in a meeting where they think you shouldn't be, and then vice versa. What do you tell somebody when they see something a certain way that needs to be explained better? Does that kind of make sense the way I said that?
Let's try asking that question again. I'm not sure I understand.
It's kind of the miscommunications part. So you said so basically what I'm going off of is the questions and the repeat questions that are coming up in this list that I'm looking at. And what I'm trying to figure out, is there a way to get more clarity and transparency, as we like to say, over a certain subject? And it's not specific. The subject's not specific. We're just talking kind of general here. Is there a way that we can push the clarity and transparency so that the miscommunications and the misquotes and the misinformation gets pushed away and information pushes that out the, do you understand?
Let me take a stab at that. I think I understand what you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So I think I hear you saying that because I'm quiet, there's a miss.
No, not because you're quiet. It's just, this is just the overall, okay, let's say it this way. The overall issue that the citizens have with the council is the miscommunications and the misinterpretations of what's being said and done. So let's take, for instance, the whole millage rate cap issue. How that was done was so backwards that it was impossible for us to see the right way to go. Does that kind of make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Yes, I understand what you're asking now. And what I would say is that I agree with you, and I agree with the residents, actually. I have had a number of internal conversations about how you handle business and how
Yes,
how how you do things. But again, this gets back to you have to have people around you who are willing to conduct business in a business-like fashion. Um, uh, we don't necessarily have that all of the time. I think one of the dynamics that residents don't see and they don't understand is a lot of times we have information that we just simply cannot share. There's a lot of things that we cannot talk about, even though they may not be in executive session, privileged, confidential, covered by state law. There are still things that it is not wise to go out and say and do. Not everybody understands that. Um, I can say, in my professional experience, both, government, politics, higher ed, a lot of information gets mishandled. A lot of information gets put out the wrong way. And then the rest of us are left to try to clean up the mess that gets made. The specific example of the millage cap, had I had my druthers, we would not have done that way, the way that it was done. And I expressed that. But I expressed it behind closed doors. Because that is where you should have those conversations. You should have those conversations in private. Um, Everything does not have to be made public because when we do the way that we are doing things, we are driving the mistrust
yes,
because we will not handle disagreements in private. We will not handle information in private. Um, and we seed mistrust into the residents and are then shocked and surprised when residents don't trust us.
see, you totally understood what I said. You totally
Yes.
understood. You got it.
And I will be the first one to say I absolutely agree with you. I have had many conversations um, with the city manager trying to find a solution to that problem. But that brings us back to a people problem and people wanting to be willing to change the way that they do things. Um, and I've said to some of the people that were involved and asked the question just very candidly, now that you have put this out there this way, what's next?
Yes.
What happens now? How do we move forward? And exactly what I expected to happen is what happened because before we had the opportunity to look at all of the options that we had and to have discussions internally about what options could be, it was put in the public and we weren't done with the work.
All right. I just wanted to interrupt. There's a question. Someone has their hand raised. Creole lady. If you can unmute your mic and just introduce yourself and ask your question to Councilwoman Williams-Brown. Creole lady, if you can unmute yourself. All right. All right. I will pass it back to you, Mr.
Okay.
Dozier.
So we have a couple more questions. Nonprofit United International wants to know what is the plan for Old National Park?
If you had paid attention to the budget presentation, then you would see that there's $617,000 in the upcoming budget to begin repairs at Old National Park. Um, You would also know, and at least those residents who live in District 6 are well aware, particularly Friends of Creole, the residents that are active and involved. We spent the past 2 years on Creole Park and upgrading Creole Park, the pavilions, the bathroom, the community center. We are now going to begin the work on Old National Park. You can refer to the budget to see that there's $617,000 allocated towards beginning the renovations and the upgrades in Old National Park.
All right, Mr. Dozier, I had a question. So with regard to Old National Park, I know we had the Mansa Park project going on, and there was supposed to be some money allocated from the Mansa Park project to the Old National Park project. Can you give us an update if you have one available on what's the status of the Mansa Park project and yeah, any updates you could give us on that project will be helpful.
So my understanding, and you can, if you see the meeting that we just had last Thursday, it was a joint meeting between the Development Authority and the City Council. That is a Development Authority project. The Mansa Town Park, from my understanding from that meeting, is that they have submitted paperwork to the ARC. The Development Authority is waiting for the ARC to process and review that paperwork and get back with them on what is next for Mansatown Park. So we, like you, are in a holding pattern waiting to see what the outcome is going to be until such time as they get back with the Development Authority and the Development Authority gets with us. That is all that we know, but you are correct in saying that the renovations to Old National Park were part of the Mansa Town Park project. And I believe you, in fact, attended the town hall at the Masonic Lodge that they had where they presented all of this to the community. But in the absence of that being done, we have gone ahead and put the money in the budget to begin the work while we wait.
All right, so if you put the money in the budget for Old National Park, but the developer was contractually obligated to put money towards it, what happens? Does that money get transferred from the developer back to the general fund? How does that work?
So the attorneys are looking into that piece of it. However, we do know that, we have to move forward. We cannot continue to, wait for the developer to do whatever it is that they're going to do. So we're going to let the attorney sort it out on the back end while we work to, do what needs to be done on the front end. And it'll all come out in the wash.
Thank you for that. Now we have Miss Pamela Harvey. She has a question. You can unmute yourself and ask your question to Councilwoman Williams-Brown. Miss Harvey, can you hear us? Miss Harvey? Miss Harvey, are you able to hear us? If you're speaking, I can't hear you. But we'll turn it back over to Mike Dozier and Pamela. Just ask your question if you can get back in. Thank you.
So one of the things that you talked about was bringing more of the friendly developments, such as restaurants and and things that we would find enjoyable. How do we incorporate who we currently have as businesses into making that happen?
So actually, that is work that is being done by, at least for Old National, that is work that is being done by the Old National Merchants Association. They are very much engaged in in how we're going to integrate new business into existing businesses that are already here. And so, as we've partnered together to look at that and having conversations with Emmanuel and with Phyllis for how that looks and what that looks like, I know that they are very keen on getting input from the existing businesses, because we don't want to build it and leave them out, because that'll just create a mess too. And so Emmanuel is trying to put a plan together on behalf of the Old National Merchants Association. That is ongoing work. As he's doing his work and we're doing our work and talking with Retail Strategies, I'm able to kind of take what Retail Strategies is doing, have the conversation with Emmanuel and Phyllis, mostly Phyllis. She's the vice president, and Phyllis Mentor, commercial realtor, vice president of the Old National Merchants, and then take what's coming out of the Old National Merchants and share that with our consulting firm, Retail Strategies. And so hopefully we will be able to have a coherent plan presented soon for how we are going to move forward. Now, what I will say is, because the work that Retail Strategies does is very highly proprietary, the only thing the public's going to get is summaries. We are not able to put out a lot of details about strategies and plans, because their work is proprietary, but those conversations are ongoing.
All right,
What
thank
type,
you for that.
go ahead, sorry.
We have a question from the audience. Ms. Jewel Johnson, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Well,
Hi, how is everybody doing?
Awesome.
Great.
good.
Well, this may have come up when I was trying to handle something prior to y'all started. But I would like to go back to, if you already talked about being able to, the presentation, the ordinance rather, that Councilwoman Pritchett had last night about removing by giving the mic back to the citizens to be able to ask whatever they want to ask about, talk about whatever they want to ask about in the public comment session. I would like to have you explain your views, because a lot of people really want that back. I have been all over the region and the city talking to people, and that's a very important thing for them. And I spoke for it last night, because I think it would be a good fresh start for the council and the citizens to begin to heal together.
So my feelings about that are very mixed. And they are mixed because, while I believe that there are residents, and the vast majority of residents would come to public comment and they would use it for the purposes for which it's intended, I also know and have evidence on pretty much daily, that there are those residents who are going to take public comment and they're going to use it as an opportunity to be verbally abusive to council, to be verbally abusive to staff. We have written concrete evidence of staff being harassed, name calling, and, just lots of inappropriate behavior. We used to have, when the comments were on YouTube, when Gary Leftwich was here, he would spend more time deleting comments because people were in the comment section fighting with each other. And so, while I would like to think that opening up public comment would be a fresh start, I think that you only need to look at the way people behave on social media in these outlets to see that everybody is not ready to come to the table, to be able to discuss business and business like fashion, to say what they have to say without being abusive. And we just can't have that. We just simply cannot have that. You know, council meetings are not a reality show. This is not Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. This is not Fight Club. We're there to handle business. And hurling vitriol and venom from a microphone at people you don't like does not help us move the business of the city forward. So I'm very, very mixed in how I feel. I hear the residents. I hear that you want to be able to do it. I am not convinced that everybody is going to handle it responsibly.
Well, I hear you, and I somewhat kind of agree. But when you look at the fact that you have taken this position to represent the people, and basically the people are the ones that actually should be who you're listening to. And we should be able to do this because I actually believe in doing this, you're actually taking away the people's right to be able to talk about the things that really bothers them. Because when you look at a lot of the other cities, I've been all over and speaking in all the other different cities, no one has that the way we do, because I'm telling you, some of the things people say in the Fulton County comment, I mean, I've never heard that in our comments. And then we have had, not you, but we have had some council people that has been very ugly to the public. I, for one, have been publicly attacked, and I have never, ever done that to anybody. Not in the public comment. Because when I make a comment, I try and make sure it's pertinent, it's factual, as best as I know it. And I'm very passionate about trying to deliver my message without that kind of content. So I really think we need to work on that. If we are going to move this city forward, there have to be some common ground with the council and the people. And I'm willing to work with the people and the council. Okay.
And I hear that. I absolutely do hear that. But like I said, I'm very mixed on this right now. Particularly because and this is no, you know, no tea, no shade to you. Particularly because we know that, you know, we just have people that are going to use it in ways that are not intended to be used. And let me just address this because, and you haven't said this, Joel, but let me just this thing because there's this, there is this idea that not being able to come to a microphone at public comment and say any and everything you want to say is infringing upon your free speech rights. Your First Amendment right protects your right to criticize the government, but it does not extend to saying being able to say any and everything that you want to say. And even the Supreme Court, and I've got to try to remember the case where you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. So there are limits to what you can and cannot say. The way I like to explain it is that your right to say what you want to say ends where my nose begins. So when you're engaging in speech that could potentially, that's abusive, that's vitriolic, that can incite a fight, that incites arguments, you don't have the right to do that. And that is where we start to get into the back and forth and And I see even on the council, I see members of council saying things that should not be said, that are very disrespectful to residents, both, in person, in council meeting, online. Um, so it is very much a two-way street, but we got to have some order.
So
We've
a lot of
have
times,
some order.
I think a lot of times what gets lost in the discussion is all versus the minority. So maybe the balance needs to be that the people who violate that right and go too far just need to get banned, not that everyone needs to get cut off. And I think that might be something that kind of needs to be considered in this discussion. A lot of what happens and a lot of the problems the citizens have is the lack of balance in the way things are done. So the solution y'all came up with was kind of an all or nothing. It's like, okay, one person messed it up, let's cut off everybody. And I think that's what they're trying to express, but it's coming off as
Mike, can you unmute again?
yes.
I
I'm
was trying to
sorry.
mute Pamela Harvey, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. So is everybody? I think Ms. Williams said she can't hear.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, there you go. What I was saying is finding the balance between either banning the people who don't know how to conduct themselves and finding ways to get the citizens' voices heard versus cutting it off totally. I think that left or right, it has to be one way or another is kind of where the problem comes in. There's no balance to it. Does that kind of make sense?
That does make sense. Let me take that to the city attorney. Um, I hear you. Let me take that to the city attorney and let's explore that as a possibility for potentially finding some middle ground. Um, because to know me is to know I'm gonna try to find the win, try to get everybody to a win-win. Or as the city manager says, everybody can have something, but everybody can't have everything.
Okay, I have a question for you. It's coming from Mrs. Dow for South Fulton, and it's asking what council vote do you see as a key win for the city and overall for District 6?
So I would say, obviously, our vote last night is the big win, for getting the police headquarters and getting the fire training center are huge for the city. Um, Having the fire training center and having a proper place for firefighters to hone their craft is going to help the fire department get its ISO rating down. And as the fire department gets its ISO rating down, that helps our insurance rates. The police headquarters, particularly having that on Old National and 138, it's actually in District 7, but it's going to force all of the police cars to travel the length of Old National. Um, and crime is down in District 6 about 40%, but we're headed into the holiday season. And, shoplifting and car break-ins are coming. They spike in the summertime when the kids are out, and they spike again in the holiday season when people are out doing their shopping. And so being able to have those. I think for District 6, a huge win for us is that we're getting a new fire station. Fire station number 7 is coming to Old National Highway. I think that this is the only district that doesn't have a fire station in it. And so that is major for us. It's actually going to be on Old National Highway. And, that is going to, working in conjunction with the police department, that is going to provide much better response times. I think everybody knows about the traffic on Old National, the car wrecks, the fatalities. That's why Georgia DOT reconfigured Old National because, the car wrecks are just crazy. And especially the number of pedestrians getting hit, trying to cross from one side to the other to get to the bus stop. So those two things working together, I think, are really going to help us start to turn the corner on Old National, so that people will stop calling it Old Nasty and thinking that, this is the place to come to do all the things that you wouldn't do in your own neighborhood. That, that this is the spot for the shenanigans. Um, but those things, particularly because we know that public safety was number one on why the city was formed in the first place, was so that we could address those problems ourselves. And so I think that having those things in place is really a big win for the city and really a big win for District 6.
All right, there's questions. There's people with their hand raised. So, Ms. Harvey, are you able to hear us now?
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, good. I had to redo my microphone, the different codes. But this is my question to Councilwoman Williams-Brown. My concern is this. Can you give us an update on the India and African trips and what is the game plan on making these visits other than an MOU?
So yes and no. First, let me say that there is a written report coming. I have a debrief meeting from the Nigeria trip tomorrow at 2:00. And once I have that meeting, I'll be able to complete my report, turn it into the city manager, and it will be made public. On both of those trips, we have had a lot of conversations about economic opportunities, about exchanges, ways in which we can cooperate globally. While I was in Nigeria, I had the opportunity to sit with the Commissioner of Health for Nigeria, and we had some conversations around healthcare. We know that a lot of Nigerian doctors come here to America, and we know that we have healthcare needs here on the South Side in South Fulton. And so we've begun to have some preliminary conversations around what could a partnership look like between Nigeria and Fulton County, particularly focused on South Fulton, for where we can build out, or rather, I should say, expand upon the freestanding emergency room that's being built. So we had that conversation. I had the opportunity to sit with some filmmakers and some production companies in Nigeria that are looking for opportunities to film in America. City of South Fulton has production studios in the city of South Fulton. And so I was able to present those as options. We will follow up on those conversations as well. There were conversations with bankers and financiers, people who are looking for investment opportunities, particularly in real estate. And so we started having conversations with them about what would investment in South Fulton, particularly in the city of South Fulton, look like. There were some educational exchanges, conversation with one of the architects, a professor who is widely considered to be the expert and the architect of Nigeria's economy. What could it potentially look like for their business students to have some sort of exchange program here with our HBCUs, particularly Clark Atlanta, because they do have a, very successful business school. I think it's like in the top 10 in the country, but the city of South Fulton offers internships. Can we form partnerships where we have a student exchange with the city of South Fulton providing internship opportunities, and we can draw upon their expertise as business students to help us build out some of our hopes, our dreams and our wishes here in the city of South Fulton. And then right now, one of Nigeria's most well-known artists, Mama Nike, is currently in Atlanta. We are hopeful that we're going to be able to work with her to do some cultural exchange, to do some artistic work. We've suggested perhaps reaching out to the High Museum of Art, working with the High Museum of Art to curate a big exhibit. The High Museum has that third floor where they do the traveling exhibits. Curate a major exhibition for her on the third floor of the High, and then also have a smaller exhibition of her work at the South Fulton Arts, the Southwest Art Center, to include having Mama Nike herself teach a class or two, which will help help us build up our artistic community. Of course, these are preliminary conversations. We just had them. There's a lot of work to be done. You don't get immediate right now wins anytime you're working internationally. It's a lot of negotiation, but they were very positive conversations, and you will see that reflected in my report.
The question, but then I have to ask, why would Nigeria back their own human capital and talents?
Well, Nigeria does back their own human capital and talents, but they also see opportunities here in America. Despite things that are happening in DC right now, America is still a place to come and is still a place to be. If you know, especially anything about the Old National Corridor, there's a large Nigerian, even an African and Afro-Caribbean population right here.
But the question is, if you wanted some African Americans to go to Nigeria and ask for these same things about creating a museum of African American culture and African American doctors, would that invite be extended as well?
That is not something I can answer because that is not something that was discussed, and it was not the focus of this trip.
Okay, so the focus is to give the Nigerian people an opportunity here in the United States and the city of South Fulton.
If they are serious about investing here in the city of South Fulton, we want to extend to them that opportunity.
Okay, investing, are you talking about money or human capital?
Both.
Both, okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pamela. I appreciate you as always.
All right, we have another question from Andre, data coordinator. Andre, can you introduce yourself and what district you're from, and you can ask your question to Councilwoman Williams-Brown.
Got you. I'm from District 1.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, this is towards the council person. It clearly seems like there's like some type of clique environment going on with you and two other council people. I'm just trying to figure out like what type of partnerships do you have with like all of the members outside the council meetings from District 1 through 4?
So the clique that you see with Councilwoman Bell, myself, and Councilwoman Pritchett, all three of us represent a portion of Old National Highway. And we have decided that rather than operate in silos and everyone do their own thing, we want to work together as a unified corridor to ensure that we are not stepping on each other's toes, and that we're supporting each other in the things that we're doing, that we're having the conversations, because we want to build Old National from Checkers to 138. And you cannot do that if you're not talking to each other and you're not working together. In addition to that, we do work with Councilwoman Rao in District 1. Was actually having some conversations with her before the council meeting, as well as Councilman Sebastian in District 4. So I wouldn't say that it is a clique. I would say that what you are seeing is three people representing a portion of the same street
Grouped up.
trying to work together.
Gotcha. Okay. So like on the whole unity for the city, like 1 through 4, what's your relationship with them? Have you guys been in talks with anything development other than just OldNet?
Clarify for me what you mean by that, because I'm not sure I know what
Basically,
you mean referring to developing.
no, I mean like with districts 1, 2, 3, and 4, like what are some things you guys are partnering up with? So I see that you're doing the thing with OldNet. That's great, but it's a whole city.
Right, it is the whole city. I'm really not sure what you're getting at, because we don't, or at least I've not been invited to the table to get into development issues in any of those districts. Um, are you talking about having events together? Are you talking about?
Yeah, things of that sort. Because there's like a lot of city issues going on right now.
I think he's referring to collaboration with the District 1 through 4 representatives.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So in those places where we're able to collaborate, we do. But I think I also have to be honest and say is I work with people who want to work with me.
Oh, so you're saying all the other council people 1 through 4 don't want to work with you? Why is that?
I did not say that. I said that I work with people who want to work with me. And when people want to work with me, I work with them. When they don't want to work with me, I don't work with them. I have to be invited to do it. If
Gotcha.
I'm not, if I'm not invited to do it, then how do I work with them?
You could invite them.
And they are invited. I
I thought
all
I thought you just said in order to work with them, they have to invite you. How are you invited?
when I have something happening in District 6, I invite the other members. Not every other member invites me when they have something that is happening.
Okay, cool. Thank you. You've answered everything I needed.
All right, thank you for that question. Now we will turn it over to Shay. Shay, if you can introduce yourself and you unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Shay and I'm with District 5. Um, Hope everyone's doing well this evening. I had a question pertaining to, I think Ms. Harvey just said something about the Africa trip. And I kept hearing the word conversation, like there's a lot of conversations going on about maybe Nigeria coming here. There's a lot of conversations about maybe them filming movies here. And it kind of struck me as odd because Atlanta is already a thriving community. In this whole area, like you said, we already have um a movie theater, a movie production place down here in the city of South Fulton in Union City. And you have Tyler Perry not too far from here. You have Trilith Park not too far from here. But you would go all the way to Nigeria to try to bring funds when there are plenty of opportunities here in the United States and in the state that would have cost much less, that could have been more than a conversation. To me, paying that kind of money to go across the world to have a conversation, it just defeated the purpose. And then when you talk about medical, you have Morehouse School of Medicine right up the street, which is predominantly Black. You have Tuskegee has their own veterinarian, which is a HBCU as well. So if you were trying to get to maybe grassroots or African American and bringing that in with us being a Black city, why wouldn't you start at home and lead the conversations to a Zoom call and actually use that money to do something that would actually fix the city right now? I've been in this city for 40 years. and the senior community, the youth community, they all need help. And it needs more than a conversation. So I just want to know how are you going to tie and how are you going to help the people that's here instead of trying to bring people from another country? Whereas right now, the turmoil and state of our country, they're steadily kicking people out every day. So are you going to spend all this money to get these people over here just for the administration to ice them and send them back? I don't understand. Could you please elaborate?
I don't know if I have enough time to elaborate because it's 8 o'clock and I have 1 minute before this is up. However, what I will say is, yes, there are a lot of, I think there's a lot of things that are here. But we have to go to where people are saying that they want to come in. And I think the question that I would ask is, yes, we have Tyler Perry, but is Tyler Perry said anything about wanting to work with the city of South Fulton?
Have you ever had that conversation with him?
I have not been invited to have a conversation
So
with him.
as a council person, you can't wait for people to come to you with ideas if you're trying to help the city. You're supposed to be our voice. And so you have to go and establish these relationships. It's not like I feel like it's such a mean girl unit in this council. It's like, if you don't like me, I don't like you. I'm not going to talk to you. And you can't be like that. You have to go out and extend your hand just to see. Have the conversation with people here.
And I agree with you that you have to have the conversation with people here. But I would also suggest, as time is running out, I would also suggest that in order to have the conversation, people have to be willing to have the conversation with you. I have not seen any indication whatsoever that the people that you are naming have any interest in having any conversations with us at all. And in fact, I would suggest that some of the people that we need to have conversations with are so turned off by the way that we act that it has made it difficult to have some of those conversations locally. I would also suggest that part of the way that all of these other places are able to build is because they do precisely the types of things that we are attempting to do, which is to attract investment.
I think that the reason why a lot of people are turned off is because of the track record of our current council and the news and all of the negativity that has gone on. It's not going to benefit me, anything in my city or on my street right now, to have some Nigerians, not saying anything about them, but to have them come over here and take needed funds or opportunities out of somebody's back who lives here. And that's my take on it. Thank you for your time.
Councilwoman Williams, are you able to stay a little bit longer? We have until 8:30. Do you have a?
Okay. I thought it said 8 o'clock, but sure.
Okay, we have until 8:30 if you need, if you can allow us a little bit more time. We have a couple more questions. Miss Patricia, you can unmute yourself and just introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hi, thank you for everybody coming. I just had a couple of comments and then I just had a question. I know that the last speaker really laid it on thick, but that's what the purpose of having a conversation amongst groups of citizens and our council members is to bring about the tough questions and get the right answers. I'm in total agreement, and I put it in the comments because I didn't think that we were going to have time. But to me, the extensive trips that the city councils have been taking is nothing more but personal trips underscored by city business. I don't believe that City of South Fulton is ready, is mature enough to handle bringing in delegates and investors from international sectors of the world. And without the economic development department that we have is quite odd for me. To not have the economic department involved or lead the race in trying to bring in some international interest into our community is highly questionable. But I go back to my emotions in regards to it. I believe the travel with District 7, 6, 5, the mayor, and I think there was maybe even District 2 rumors of going travel. I think is all just, I don't know. I think it's a stretch. But I'll leave that alone at this point. But I just want to say that once again, the cap, and I think a lot of the city council finally realized that a lot of the members that are in this community are not as uneducated as they believe that we are. And to say that a lot of information is in executive session so that we can't hear it, the truth, integrity, and transparency are not confined to executive session. And I believe that we learned that at the church meeting in regards to the mill cap and the increase of the mill rate to include, and I'll bring up the sanitation, that left the citizens very disillusioned in terms of our leadership and how they project a narrative that is based on transparency and all the other great words. So the executive, we can't really tell you everything, I think is disingenuous. I think you're doing a great job, Councilwoman Brown. I think we need more of the council coming together. I like the fact that you, Bell, and Pritchett is coming together, like you said, on Old National. Old National needs a lot of help, but I think every sector of our district needs a lot of help. But I know that you guys are key pointing on the most needed areas. My question to you has always been a pet peeve of mine. How can you spend $10,000 a month on P card usage and expect that every line item is a legitimate expense, regardless of meals and travel? I believe that $10,000 a month is way excessive. And not only for the council, for the employees that have P cards, for economic development over here have P cards, the police department have P cards. I think it's just taken legs and you guys have run amok with it. Please explain in your best way. I'm gonna say abuse. I don't want to say abuse, but just your thoughts on this P card spending. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you for those comments. I don't think we've had the chance to have a conversation. So I think that the P card, the whole conversation about the P card has been put out in the public wrong. Each of us in our districts, in our district budgets, has $65,000 for the year, right? The P cards are simply a way for us to spend our budget, a convenient way for us to spend our budget. And there are some things that we just simply have to do using a P card. I cannot buy a plane ticket going through a procurement process. I cannot book a hotel going through a procurement process. So the P card allows you to spend your budget on those things that don't rise to the level of P cards. We are not spending, each of us is not spending $10,000 a month every month. Some months, and I can only speak for myself, some months I only have a few $100s. I have some things that I have subscriptions for. I have my Constant Contact, I have Shutterstock, I have all the things that I use to send out my newsletter every 2 weeks. Some months I have more spending. I'm going to be going to the National League of Cities conference in November. I'm going to Congressional Black Caucus in a couple of weeks in DC. This is where, we meet, we have our trainings, we get information, we talk about issues that are pertinent to cities and learn best practices from people around the country. We got to have a P card to do that. I 100% agree with you that there have been abuses of P cards. I would submit to you that there's also been abuses of the procurement process. There's been abuses of purchase orders. There's been abuses of invoicing. I think abuses, and it is unfortunate to have to say that's not unique to the city of South Fulton. I've worked in government a long time. Abuses happen. Unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that they do, but you try to address them, and you try to address them when they come up in a way that doesn't cause more damage. I think for us, we have been addressing things in a way that adds to the frustration that residents feel. Because while there could be abuses or perceived abuses, are they policy abuses? And that's where I think people see spending and say, oh, why is Natasha going to Jimmy John's every month and spending $250 on Jimmy John's? She's just out there having parties. What you don't know is that Natasha is spending $250 on Jimmy John's because I have anywhere from 20 to 30 volunteers showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning, unloading a truck of food, spending 4 hours handing that food out, and then spending another hour cleaning up. And so I give them a box lunch from Jimmy John's because they're unpaid volunteers, and the least I can do is give them a meal if they're going to give me 7 or 8 hours out of their day to help meet the need of people who are experiencing food insecurity. And so I think that that's kind of where I think we've gotten stuck, is that the P card statements get put out, people see a line item, and without asking questions, immediately jump to assume something nefarious has happened. And of course, then, here we go, back down the rabbit hole of everyone's a crook, everyone's a thief, everyone's abusing the P card, take it all away, and all the things that get said. When that's really not the case. It's just a way to spend your budget that you're allocated to spend so that we can do the things that we do for you and we can put the money back out into the community. The other thing that I would say is that in a digital world, and I think that people, and I'm a Gen Xer. I can very much remember the days when you did everything with paper and pen and you typed stuff on forms in triplicate and then you walked it around to get signatures. That's not the world that we live in anymore. And so some things just cannot be done if you don't have a P card to do them. And when you look at how we function and the things that we do and the things that we do for the community, it's a tool for us to be able to spend. I agree that we need to find a better way of probably communicating all of that to residents. I think that it is unfortunate that we've kind of gotten into this cycle of everybody's a crook. We want to see the P card statement. Oh, look, Catherine spent $15 at Great Wall of China. She's out here eating on our money, without ever asking the question to see, well, why was Catherine at Great? And that's just an example. She hasn't done it. I'm not saying she did, but just to use that as an example, then we don't know that without asking the question that Catherine was actually having a business lunch with somebody where she was trying to talk about a project in her district. You see what I'm saying? I would like to see everyone take a step back. I would like really for there to be a reset where we can all take a step back from the brink and have a better conversation about how the city functions and what that looks like day to day in a very real world way. So that there is better understanding of when you see these things, they're not nefarious and nobody is, trying to steal money or do something they shouldn't do. We're just simply going about the day to day of trying to function and trying to operate in our offices. Did that make sense, Patricia?
Yeah, yes, it did. And I thank you for that question. I don't believe that my question was revolved around what was necessary for the purposes for the P card. My question was lined with the audit, especially with a forensic audit that was done for the mayor, and how I believe they said that he had 70,000 worth of unchecked receipts, and then some of the policies that were there about what can be spent, how much food can be spent, how much you can eat. But the things that you guys are legitimately doing, I have no qualms with. I just believe that there should be a little bit more controls and a little bit more integrity about what is actually being spent. I mean, I've pulled many P cards, and I can tell you, if I had 5 yellow markers on some of y'all P cards, they would run out of ink. But just to say, I'm just saying that yes, they are a necessary tool. And the other issue that I have is, okay, when you do come across a nefarious purchase, we've had several in the past, even before you, way back years ago, where these charges have not been paid back. And a good question is, we've got 70,000 or whatever amount, say for the mayor that came out on the audit, how is the city going to hold this accountable for maybe the next people that come on the board and you guys are still there, and what policies are going to be put in place? But I don't want to hold everybody up. It was just a thought,
No.
something to think about when that P card comes across the table again. So,
Right.
but thank you so very much.
Well, no, stay on the line, because I think that it's important to note that we've already taken those steps. I think that, I think that may have gotten lost in the translation, and just kind of some of the motions that people have been feeling around the P cards. But we have already taken steps to address all of those things that you just raised. Even before we got the forensic audit, we had started working on looking at our policies and looking at our procedures and tightening them up. I mean, one of the things that got tightened up was the council having to approve international travel. And then having, when you do the international travel, having to turn in a report. And I'm not sure if you were on when I told Pamela that once I have my debrief, we have a debrief meeting tomorrow at 2:00. Once I have that debrief meeting, I can finish my report and I can turn it into the city manager. We have implemented procedures where, forms have to be filled out. They now require 2 signatures. They have to go and these are automatic, routing through DocuSign so that it can't go to the wrong person. So if the city manager is supposed to sign it, it goes to the city manager and not the assistant city manager, since, that seems to have been one of the things that we found, particularly with the mayor's P card audit, is that there were forms that were signed, they just weren't signed by the right person. And so we took those steps. I think because everyone maybe was so emotional and kind of, and we didn't help, I think, kind of lower the temperature on it the way maybe we could have. A lot of the things that we had already done didn't get heard. And a lot of the corrections that we had already made, didn't get heard in everything that was going on during that time. And so I hope that, now and going forward, we're going to be able to really see a difference in how those types of things get handled, because we do have these new policies and these new procedures and all of these things in place that we actually had put in place back in January and February. And we can do a better job of communicating, with the residents, the actions that we are taking and things that we are doing. So that y'all don't think that we're just sitting up here, not listening and not taking action.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
thank you for that. I just wanted to explore that a little bit more. So you mentioned the mayor's P card. So with regard to his P card and him submitting the travel forms and they were signed by the wrong people, did he submit them to the wrong people, or did the wrong person receive them and just sign off on it? Oh,
Now that how they got signed, I don't know. I have not been given that information. The only information that, I have is the same information that was shared with all of y'all publicly, that the forms had signatures on them. They just were the wrong signatures. How that happened, I cannot speak to.
okay. All right, and we're running low on time. I'm gonna acknowledge these last two comments from, I'm sorry, questions. Pamela Harvey, you have the floor, and then we'll go to Andre.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Um, I want to thank, I totally agree with Miss Shea. And since you're on this P card issue, let me just tell you this. I used to have a government credit card when I worked for the feds. And I had a card where I could spend $3,000 a day. And what I did was basically that card was to take care of the department that I was over. And I had to reconcile those purchase orders every month to the T, to the penny. And if it was 1 penny off, I would have to justify that. So my question is, why wasn't the mayors or whoever, and there was another council person, how come those their P card uh, statements were not reconciled at the end of 30 days?
Um, I cannot answer because I don't know what happened with them personally. What I can tell you that what the process is now, because we now have a compliance officer. If we don't have our receipts in and things done in the time that they're supposed to be, we get emails from our compliance officer. And if we don't respond to that, then the P cards are cut off. I can tell you that for me, because I can only speak personally for how I handle my P card. We have a portal that we go into. We get an email from the portal. If we spend something, we get an email from the portal saying you need to upload your receipts. We have to upload the receipt. We have to type in what the justification for that is. If it's related to travel, we have to attach the signed travel approval form along with the receipt, to justify that this was legitimate approved travel. And from that point, once I hit submit, it goes to our compliance officer. I think having the compliance officer has made a huge difference, because before we didn't have one. When I first got elected and sworn in, we had a compliance officer. She left for promotional opportunity with the fire department. And then we just had this gap where there wasn't a compliance officer there. And now we have a compliance officer again. And so those things have been tightened back up. And even, additional kind of rules and regulations and policies have been put in place. So I think a lot of what happened because we lost our compliance officer to that promotional opportunity in the fire department. The position was vacant for, several months. And now that it's filled again, I think that we are back on track. And so a lot of what you probably saw happening kind of end of 23, 24-ish, we've got our hands around now.
Okay, well, I hope so because it's one thing I have a problem with wasting money. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Pam.
you. And our last question of the evening goes back to you, Andre. You can unmute your mic.
Gotcha. Just one last question. I know the Azuka Fest is coming up. Yeah, so like why do you support like 150K into a festival at the Wolf Creek, you know what I'm saying, theater with like just the councilwoman District 7's on in honor? I don't understand that. I feel like, there's a solid waste bill that, could definitely have some of this money going towards it. I've been to the Azuka Fest for the past 2 years now. No one is there, but I'm hoping that, we have a good turnout so that way this money can be spent properly. But that's my question.
So, first and foremost, let me say that each of us has money in the Parks and Recs budget to have a signature event and to have a secondary event. Now, how Councilwoman Pritchett chooses to use that money, that is her decision. And I support it because we want to promote diversity in the city. And she is Hispanic. She's of Cuban descent. She can't help who her relatives are. I know that people want to or feel some kind of way because of who her aunt is, but she can't help that. She can't help the family that she was born into. And I do think that using those connections and using those ties to encourage our Hispanic residents to come out, and to have something during Hispanic Heritage Month where they can celebrate is worth the investment. It has to grow. I can tell you that when I use my money for my back to school carnival, and I can tell you that the first time I did it, my first year, I had very few people there. 4 years later, I have about 2,000 kids showing up. So it takes time to grow these kinds of big signature events, but we don't want to take away the opportunity for our Hispanic brothers and sisters to have something for them that celebrates their culture and celebrates their heritage. Again, my carnival doesn't cost $150,000. I don't know what all goes into it because I am not familiar with the details of how she is spending that money. That is something I think that, I will leave to her to answer. But in terms of the broad question of why do I support this? Because I think that it's important that the city of South Fulton makes space for everybody, regardless of race, regardless of creed, color, gender, sexual orientation. I want to see us be a city that is welcoming. I know the mayor likes to say that we are the blackest city, but we are not 100% black. We have other people that are here, and we want to make space for them as well. And I, like you, if I can make it, the 20th is a real busy day, but I'm hoping to be able to make it out there and at least get one salsa in before it ends. And hopefully I get to see you there and greet you in person.
And thank you so much for participating, Councilwoman Williams-Brown. If you could just give some closing remarks about your campaign and what you hope to achieve if elected for another term.
So I think mostly just to say thank you for inviting me back. Thank you to the residents who showed up to participate, to ask the questions. I hope that I got to everyone's question adequately. And obviously, here in District 6, I am doing big things. We are growing, we are moving, we are shaking. And the best is yet to come. All I can simply say is that if you look at the things that are happening here in District 6, you can see that I've put in the work, that I have done the due diligence. I have been active in building a city, building a district, and I look forward to returning to the seat so that I can continue the work that I have begun so that the 6th district can remain sensational.
If you could just share your contact information about your campaign.
So if you want to reach out to my campaign, please send me an email at vote for Natasha, C O as in the letter O, SF6 at Gmail. Vote for Natasha, COSF6, the number 6 at gmail.com.
All right, thank you so much. And everybody, we will have another presentation tonight in about 5 minutes from Tori Tomlinson. I put the link in the chat. So if you can, after this call ends, if you could join that one, we will begin momentarily with Tori Tomlinson. He's also a candidate for District 6. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.